The Holy Gospel of our Lord according to St. John. Philip said to Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied." Jesus said to him, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still don't know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask me for anything, I will do it. If you love me, you will keep my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him because he abides with you, and he will be in you. I've said these things to you while I am still with you, but the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you everything and remind you of all that I have said to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid." The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. Just a couple quick pieces. Do you understand the difference between the words disciple and apostle? Sometimes you hear the 12 that were associated with Jesus as the disciples of Jesus. Yet in fact, were they the disciples, followers of this Jewish rabbi, teacher, or were they apostles? Which one? The Gospel talks today, Acts talks today about the apostles. So a disciple is, in general definition, one who follows a teacher. But what happens if the teacher eventually, at some point, doesn't the student have to graduate? Doesn't the student have to move on? And hopefully, doesn't a teacher teach? I have educators in the room. My hope is, my assumption is that you teach so that they at some point will teach someone else. If you're a parent, did you learn your lessons because of, in spite of your parents? And do you want your kids to teach their kids what you taught them, or do you want them to teach something else? Is there a direct correlation between one who knows, offers, and then expects them to teach someone else? Jesus hung out with the disciples when they were in student mode, and he declared them apostles as he departed this earth because they had to then be the ones who would teach the next generation. We call that discipleship. We call that mentoring. We call that the responsibilities and obligations of being a parent, of being a pastor, of being a member of every congregation. Today is Pentecost, and at our congregation, today we celebrate the affirmation of baptism, or the confirmation, the completion of a structured program of 2 students who are now full-fledged members of St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church, and now they can vote. And they can take their offering envelopes and put some money in them and maintain their membership by constitution. But what's the agenda? Confirmation of old. I went to confirmation. I went for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years, my mother said to the pastor, he doesn't know enough. And I was in 11th grade because I didn't even get started till I was in 10th grade. So I never got confirmed. I have never been confirmed until I went to seminary, and then you had to be confirmed if you were going to be a Lutheran pastor. I was never confirmed. And look where that hurt me. Seriously? Maybe confirmation isn't the rite of passage toward life. Maybe it is graduation toward death. It certainly is significant in most congregations' histories. All you have to do is roll out the pictures, And you'll see that you have less than 1% population that were pictured on their 8th grade graduation and completion of catechism, and they're no longer affiliated with any congregation. That was the way of the world back then. And it was the way of the world in part because in a nominally Christian culture, I want you to hear it again, in a watered down, not so necessary, you don't really have to lean on God kind of culture because you can do it on your own, in that kind of environment, all you need's a little bit to kind of feel like you've completed what you were supposed to complete or do what you're supposed to do, and yet at the same time, simultaneously, not employ the faith that you were even taught. Let me try it a different way. How many of you grew up in churches that, yes, you were taught the catechism? You were, right? You were taught things of the Bible, but you didn't really necessarily sink your teeth into its relevance. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. And because it didn't make a whole lot of sense, you didn't employ it on an ongoing basis. You know, it's when somebody goes through a crisis, I start to hear where they are in their faith journey. When someone's going through a crisis, I start to hear, because I will say to them, invariably I'll say to them, how about you say the prayer? And almost always they'll say, okay. And then I hear where their faith is. I hear, do they really trust in the Lord with all their heart? I hear they can pour out their anger and their frustration with God. I hear if they have a sense of God's power, might, justice, desired peace and healing. I can hear it, and so can you. You know when a person's faith somehow got stopped at right around confirmation age, or you know when their faith got stopped at 2nd grade or 3rd grade Sunday school class. You know. But in what congregation would it ever be acceptable for a pastor or for its key leaders to not have an expectation, a standard, a high standard? High expectation, high standard congregations grow. Low expectation, low standard congregations do not. Take my word for it or not. That's the fact. Raising the standard in a marginally or nominally Christian environment is extraordinarily challenging because people have already learned they can sit all night in front of a television and eat Doritos and it's not a big deal until their doctor says, after a $110,000 heart stent, now you're going to have to get yourself out there and walk 2-3 miles a day, and you're going to have to move more toward a plant-based diet. Should insurance companies, in fact, pay for the second stent if they didn't do that? There's your ethical question for the day. Should they? Why not say the standard is if you want to reform healthcare? No. If you're not doing it, you're not doing it, then you suffer the consequences. Eat your Doritos, die. Isn't that exactly what I'm saying about Christianity? We will either live according to the standards or we will die. Isn't that where we are in our own individual faith? Because in our culture, we talk a lot about personal faith in Jesus Christ, personal relationship with Jesus. I believe in a corporate relationship with God because I need you to do what I do. I hope you need me to do what you do, and that is serve and love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. I think that's the standard. Confirmation class has been, and for many congregations, is simply graduation and the launching to never coming back. But confirmation class does not have to be that. It does not. Confirmation class should not be about students. It should be about students and their families. Because when the parents know and have deep abiding faith, the kids have a greater opportunity, a greater chance, not a guarantee, but a greater opportunity and chance that they will be people of faith. All the research says, the former president of Philadelphia Lutheran Theological Seminary, David Lose, a man for whom I have great respect, if we could ever have a pastor come here, I'd step out of the pulpit in 10 seconds if David Lose would come and be our pastor here. But we're not going to get him because he's the pastor of the largest Lutheran congregation in the United States. And he's the one with 14,000 people that gather on any average Sunday, 14,000 people. And he's a humble man. He was raised in Myerstown, Pennsylvania. His father was the pastor in Myerstown, Pennsylvania of that Lutheran church. And he was raised as a PK, as a pastor's child, and knew that he had deep faith and knew that he wanted to learn more. So he went back to school. He got his undergraduate degree, and then he went and got a PhD. And then he led the organization that equips and trains some of the best Lutheran clergy in the country. But he noticed a pattern. With all that high attendance at Philadelphia Lutheran Theological Seminary, less than 1/3 wanted to be pastors. 2/3 did not want to be pastors. They just wanted the education. I want Chase and Ted, our two confirmands, to know that we stand side by side with them in growing their faith. I want the standard of our congregation to be where we will mentor others. It's not about the pastor mentoring a bunch of people. It's the pastor equipping saints so works of service happen and the body of Christ is built up. It's congregation members who are committed to nurturing the faith of another because they're so committed that their heart breaks that another one wouldn't know Jesus with a vibrant faith. It's a congregation that understands at the gut level that lives are saved beyond just earth, but for eternity when we share our faith. How many of you as parents would say, I admit, I went to church 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I went to confirmation class, but I wouldn't have the first idea how to equip my child to be a follower of Jesus. How many of you might say yes to that? How many of you would say you didn't practice sharing your faith with others? So how would you know? Pastors say it all the time. We're dumb as bricks when we do this. Hey, go and share your faith, but we don't give you any training to share your faith. What's the first start? How do you start when you share your faith? What is the starting point? Is it, well, humanity was created in relationship with God in the Garden of Eden, and because of the fall of humanity, because of that wily little snake, and because the woman said yes to eating the apple, is that how we want to share our faith? Good heavens, no. That's the biblical story, but don't we share our faith more like this? I know that I'm broken, I know that you're broken, and there's an opportunity and a way out to be whole and healthy. And if we look in a mirror, we're going to see ourselves as broken, but if we see ourselves through the eyes of Jesus Christ, we are whole. We are set free. But you can't be set free unless you recognize that you were broken. And in that brokenness, recognizing that God offers something that's spectacular. I want what you learn in confirmation class to have actual value, and I want what you've learned in confirmation class to shape your future behavior as a follower of Jesus Christ. And I know, and everyone in the room knows, that you're so young that the likelihood of Jesus competing with football, or Jesus competing with soccer, or Jesus competing with Nike, or Jesus competing with just about anything, the poor guy loses. Because there's so much more in our world. World views, world religion, world everything. And kind of sort of anything goes, right? So have you learned in our program here what it's like to see people at their best and people at their worst? By seeing the Holocaust Museum Memorial in Washington, D.C., you saw examples of 70 years ago, some of the worst things that have ever happened in history. You learned that even the Lutheran Church was anti-Semitic. You learned that it was 7-8 years ago that the Lutheran Church said we were wrong. It took us a long time to admit we made mistakes. You've learned through serving others by being a part of the Potato Project. 3 train car loads of potatoes harvested, and you were a part of that. You were a part of feeding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in Berks County, hundreds of people, and a part of their nourishment, potatoes, carrots, and other vegetables that were grown by iHarvest Project. You've had opportunities to pack backpacks for students that come home from school and they have no food in the cabinets or in the refrigerator. You have done direct hands-on ministry. I think you probably have learned that you are very privileged, and that as much as you might scream for the latest iPhone or the newest iBox or Xbox or whatever box it's called, whatever all that is, you know that the opportunities that you have are massive in comparison to many others. And I don't criticize that, and I don't push buttons to say, wake up, other than to say, how can you help God? Ted, Chase, God does need you to do this work. Every single person seated in the pews, I can ask, I can provide on behalf of God the invitation to participate, but I can't make you do it. I can only offer opportunities, and I'll work with you to create whatever opportunities. But to dismantle systems that do nothing but perpetuate a superficial relationship with Jesus, man, I relish those opportunities. To tear down and destroy and to pluck up and pull away anything that keeps you as an obstacle away from your faith growing deeper, I welcome those opportunities. I live for moments to make opportunity in my life and your lives to raise a little ruckus and create a little chaos so that you might see the massive love that God has for you. To invite you to participate in the Ambulance Association, to be a sponsor. I don't live in Boyertown, but you're going to see my name as a member of the community ambulance because I work in Boyertown, and I know they'll come running if I need them. But I want to make sure that they know by the few shekels that I can offer them that they're appreciated, they're respected, their skill, their talent, their gift, a gift and skill that I don't have. The only gift I have is that I can talk long. If you want a confirmation class to grow, you have to have missions trips, and you have to have summer camps, and you have to get them away from here, and you have to give them an opportunity to experience God in nature. You have to have them experience the real world, untainted. Wherever you've been as adults, we need you at St. John's to be a mentor. I had someone this past week do something that was very kind. They came to me and they said, I want to pray for you. I can't count on one hand how many times that's happened in 4 years since I've been here. That was so cool. So cool. It was humbling. I want to pray for you, Mr. Prayer person. And they prayed. And it was convicting. It was encouraging. It's kind. Rodney, how's your toe?
Very good.
I was going to call the big tow truck.
You're going to get a big one.
Yeah. Can I tell people now that I've said it live and on TV? Yeah. Rodney's on an antibiotic. He's got a little bit of an infection in there. We got to pray for him that toe doesn't get lost because he could lose that toe. But if those antibiotics work and they flood that thing, and if Vicky pampers him for the next 6 weeks and even more, good luck on that one. Yeah, so we're going to pray for Vicky more than we are Rodney. All those things. Chase, Ted, I don't know if you're going to stick around. I don't know. And I can't make you. And I can't compete with a lot of the things that the world has to offer. I really can't. But I can tell you this. I can tell you that to the best of my human ability, we'll provide opportunities that will drive you up a wall if you want to learn. If you want to learn, if you want to read, if you want to understand, there are a bunch of us here at St. John's that want to make sure that you have nothing standing in the way of you becoming and doing great things for the sake of God. Confirmation does have a future. If you help, all of you.